In the 1940s, one of the most familiar formats on radio was the quiz show. Sometimes big prizes were given away, but the shows were really cheap to produce. And one of the most popular was the most intelligent. Information, Please. It aired from the late 30s until the early 50s. The panel members mostly were in journalism and the arts, and they were asked questions sent in by listeners. If the panel got stumped, the person submitting the question got cash and sometimes a set of encyclopedias. But another show was completely a parody of Information, Please. It had a panel that couldn't answer anything. The show was called It Pays to Be Ignorant and ran for a decade. Unlike Information, Please, where none of the panelists saw the questions beforehand, It Pays to Be Ignorant was completely scripted, even though it sounded ad-libbed. The panelists were all former vaudevillians. So today, Information, Please. Tomorrow, It Pays to Be Ignorant. First, here's an episode of Information, Please.
It's 8:30 New York time. Time to wake up America and stump the experts. Each week at this time, Lucky Strike sets up a quartet of titanic brains for you to try to whittle down to normal size. You provide the questions, and our experts try to answer them. Remember, under the new arrangement, for every question used, Lucky Strike will give you not only $10 in war stamps, but a set of the 12-volume Britannica Junior Encyclopedia. If the question is muffed, you get the Junior Britannica, plus a $50 war bond, plus a 24-volume set of the regular Encyclopedia Britannica. Send your questions to Information, Please, 480 Lexington Avenue, New York City. If our editorial staff edits your questions a bit, don't fret over it. In case of similarity, we'll have to be the sole judge of who shall be paid, and all questions become the property of Information, Please. And now, light up a Lucky Strike as I present our Master of Ceremonies, book reviewer of the New Yorker magazine, Clifton Fadiman. Mr. Fadiman.
Ladies and gentlemen, Information, Please, is completely spontaneous and unrehearsed, as it has always been. And tonight, the spontaneity is provided by our regular trio, Franklin P. Adams, John Kieran, and Oscar Levant, together with our guest, the well-known author and radio news commentator, Quincy Howe. Now, the first question is from Amos Turk of Mount Lebanon, Pennsylvania. Mr. Kieran, what's that old-time definition of news that we used to see?
When a man bites a dog?
When a man bites a dog, that's right. Now, here is a question about famous bites. They occur in literature. I'm going to give you the newspaper headlines that describe each bite. Identify them for me. Here's the first. Bite sends man on lifelong search.
Bite means to make a loan. You know, if I want to borrow $10 from you, I put the bite on you.
Ah, yeah.
Is that the same thing?
No, different thing. That's fiction, too, however. No, this is a very famous novel, which might be summarized by saying, Bite sends man on lifelong search.
Pasteur?
No, it's a novel. Pasteur is a man.
Not according to Warner Brothers.
I think you've all read the novel. It's Moby Dick. How do you figure that out, Mr. Howe?
I figure that out from what happened to Ahab's leg when it got bitten off by the white whale.
That's right, and it sent him out in search of the whale, and that's what the story's about. Well, that's one wrong. Now we have to get the next two right. Bite results in eviction. Mr. Kieran.
That is Adam and Eve being thrown out of the Garden of Paradise for biting the apple.
Yes, that's right. Don't blame both of them. Wasn't it just Eve that did the biting?
No, according to Milton, at least.
Milton who?
John Milton.
Oh, John Milton, yeah.
Man's first disobedience.
Yeah, I guess that's right.
And the fruit.
Thereof.
How about this bite? Bite KO's heroin. Bite KO's heroin. Any ideas?
KOs.
KOs is used as a verb. Does that make it any clearer?
You mean a man bit a woman and she was knocked out?
It's an idea.
Is that a kiss or a bite?
No. The heroine did the biting herself, as a matter of fact. Well, it's Snow White who bit the poisoned apple that the witch provided her with and was knocked out until the end of the picture. And that sends a $50 war bond to Mr. Turk and a set of the Britannica, courtesy of Lucky Strike, and sends us on to a question from Ann Brown of this city. Mr. Howe, do you ever listen to your colleagues on the air, other news commentators?
Really.
Well, you can stay out of this question then if you wish. It says here, with what popular commentator on the air today do you associate each of these style of statements? I'm going to give you I don't know if these statements are exact quotations from these commentators, but they give you their style on the air, and you ought to be able to tell us who says them. First, one needs to know the relative strength of the forces engaged before venturing an opinion on the outcome to date. Mr. Howe?
Swing.
Yes. Raymond Graham Swing. Very good commentator and very cautious, as perhaps in these days it's necessary to be. What were you going to say, Mr. Levant?
Raymond Graham Swing.
Very good. Sounds better that way. Now here's another. Spring came to London today, a bright, sweet English spring, and in the spring, British youth soared over the Channel again. Mr. Levant.
Edwin, this is London Murrow.
Yes, not Edwin, however, but...
Edward, this is London Murrow.
Yes, Edward R. Murrow. The style is...
The other man, the NBC man, also talks about spring. St. John's, he's a spring man, too.
Does he use this? Does he use that kind of phrasing?
He uses birds sometimes, with a record, too.
Kind of poetic when they get over to London, Mr. Howe.
Yes, you ought to be in London.
That's the one. All right, here's another, and this is the last one. All that the OPA officials seem to see in it is, quote, propaganda, unquote. At least that's the story out of Washington tonight. Who talks that way? Mr. Howe gives it to Mr. Levant.
It's either Vockage or Bockage or Godwin, one of those.
Pick one out of two.
Well, there's only one of Vockage and Bockage.
Well, now you pick...
Well, it's Bockage or London. What's the other man's name?
You said Godwin, didn't you?
Godwin.
Yeah, now which one do you like?
It all depends what night they're on.
No. They both say the same thing?
Godwin.
That's right. If you said Bockage, you would have been wrong, but you would have been guessing in either case. Godwin is correct. All right, that gives us 3 out of 3. Thank you, Mr. Levant and Mr. Howe. And how about this one from Nathan Rosenblum of Los Angeles? Now, this one's about games that are played by literary people in books or plays. What game? What game did Cleopatra ask Charmian to play with her? Mr. Kieran.
Billiards.
Billiards. Billiards, did they play billiards in Egypt in those days?
Well, I really don't know how far back it goes, but at least Shakespeare had heard of it.
Shakespeare. They must have played billiards in Shakespeare's day.
They had a good season with elephants, probably.
Probably. How about the game that Brutus Jones played? Brutus Jones played what game?
Is that in the O'Neill play?
You tell me.
The play that Paul Robeson was in?
You tell me.
What's the name? Emperor Jones?
That's right. I told you you'd tell me. Now, what game did he play?
The game with the silver bullet.
Well, that was the fatal game that he played, but he played a game that other people played, too.
Cards.
No.
Well, why do you keep asking me?
Well, I got the first part of it. I beg pardon, Mr. Adams?
Might have rolled the bone.
He did. He rolled the bones. Dice is right.
Dice.
Cards is wrong. I'll have to count that wrong. How about the game that Dangerous Dan McGrew was playing? Dangerous Dan McGrew was playing what game in the poem? Mr. Kieran.
I think he was playing poker, wasn't he?
No. Back of the bar in a what?
It wasn't gin rummy.
No, it wasn't gin rummy, Mr. Howe.
Pharaoh?
No. Back of the bar in a solo game.
Solitaire.
Solitaire. Sat Dangerous Dan McGrew, and that gives us 2 wrong and sends a $50 war bonus to Mr. Rosenblum and a set of the Britannica, courtesy of Lucky Strike. How about this one from Samuel Goldman of Elmhurst, Long Island? What invasions made in these years, I'll give you the years, created the basis for World War II, or helped to? The first year is 1931. What invasion, Mr. Howe?
Japan into Manchuria.
Yes, called Manchuria at that time, now called what?
Manchukuo by the Japanese.
By the Japanese. 1931. Now we step forward a few years and we get to 1935. What invasion helped to lay the basis for the present larger
Italy and
conflict?
Ethiopia.
Italy and Ethiopia, yes. The actual first incident, I think, occurred toward the end of 34. Would that be right, Mr. Howe?
I
December?
don't think so. I think it started in October of 1935. The Italians claimed, of course, that they had been aggressed against, but I don't think it was as long ago as 34.
That may quite possibly be right. But the main invasion certainly took place during the year 35. And how about the year 1938? What invasion took place? Austria, the invasion of Austria. What other? Mr. Adams? Oh, you were just telling Mr.
I
Howe.
wanted him to raise his hand.
Yes, raise your hand, Mr. Howe.
At Spain, there was the German and Italian troops in Spain, only they were there as long ago as 36.
Yes, that's right. That.
Oh, yes, Italy and Albania, I think. They went in there at Easter. No, that was 39.
39.
On Good Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, the Austria and the invasion of Austria and the Sudetenland was in 38, and the Sudetenland. Now, how about this one from Mrs. John Kayer of Chicago? This is a semi-musical question. Now, certain family members are going to be mentioned specifically in each of the songs we're going to have played. Of what members does this family, when it's complete, consist? How many members and who are they? I don't mean the names of each individual person, but the position he occupies in the family. They're going to be 3 songs. They're going to be played one after the other. Is the question clear to everybody? Mr. Adams, clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. All right, now the next one. And now we're going to complete our family. All right, now, Mr. Levant, can you give us the number of people in that family and the
I
position
don't know
they
number
occupy?
one. I know the last 2 parts.
Oh, we have to get the whole thing.
One fellow have to get the whole?
Well, I guess
Why?
you can work. All right,
well,
work together.
The first one is, I want a gal like the gal that married dear old dad.
Oh, what member of the family?
That would be a mother.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, what mother? Dad is no mother.
I want a
You want a
gal.
girl like the girl that married dear old dad.
I know, but what member of the family is
That's an
mentioned?
adolescent.
Well, there's 2 mentioned.
No, only one.
Only one fella, he wants a
Do
girl.
you think the lady in the case is imaginary?
Yes.
The only actual member of the family that's mentioned by name
Let's quibble.
Even when you get...
is Dad.
Dad or Papa?
No, it's the
Mr.
boy.
Adams, you think I'm quibbling with Mr. Kieran?
No, I do not.
You think Mr. Kieran is quibbling with me?
I do.
You're a quibbler there, Kieran.
Even when you get the girl, it's imaginary anyway.
Now, that gives us Dad.
One.
Now, Mr. Adams,
And the next one is 3 sisters.
3 little sisters.
Or a dozen roses.
Very similar.
I'd take a dozen roses.
How about, that gives us a dad and 3 little sisters.
And then a darling daughter.
Yeah, now
Take that one.
All right. Now, what's the member, how does the family stack up? We have what?
It's heterogeneous as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, wait a minute. What have we got? How many members in the family?
You got 5.
You have?
Sure, you got the man that Mr. Karen quibbled about.
Yes.
You got 3 sisters. That's
3.
4.
Yeah.
And you got darling daughter.
And how about,
Well, that's only 5.
oh, no. You got another one in the last one.
Yes, my darling daughter?
Yeah, but you haven't given me the whole title of the song.
Mama, yes, my darling
Yes,
daughter?
Mama. Well, how about Mama?
That's
Left
all.
out-
Mama and a daughter is 2.
That's
Why,
6.
Sure. That gives you 6.
Not a
Since
nice
they had
family.
I think I had to throw that in your laps.
I don't like the family anyway.
We got a dad, we got 3 little sisters, we got a mother and a daughter, that's 6 in all. That means you have a dad and a mother and 4 daughters, really.
Straighten
It's
yourself out, Mr.
sort of
Feather.
Eddie Cantor minus 1. All right, I think the $50 goes to Mrs. John Kayer on that one. I had to throw that to you. And a set of the Britannica. And now, with Mr. Cross on vacation, Mr. Rysdale points out that some things just naturally belong together, like Mr. Kieran and W. Shakespeare, or Mr. Adams and Gilbert and Sullivan.
By the same token, ladies and gentlemen, there's a real affinity between Lucky Strike and fine tobacco. If you yourself could visit tobacco auctions down south, you'd see what happens when finer, lighter, milder tobaccos, Lucky Strike tobaccos, come up for sale. The bidding is spirited, of course. The buyers all want this finer leaf, but Lucky Strike consistently pays the price to get the kind of tobacco we believe means a better cigarette for you. Yes, smokers, I can sum up the results of many, many years of competition at markets all over the South with this simple 5-word statement of fact. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. Now, you know, if you just stop to think of it, that in a cigarette, it's the tobacco that counts. You know that better tobacco means a better cigarette. So, Mr. Fadiman, isn't the next step clear? Have I shown what may be gained by trying Lucky's?
Mr. Rysdale, you've put the facts squarely on the line, and in just 56 seconds. And now a question from Stanley Rippins of New York City. Gentlemen, let's assume that an American soldier in our expeditionary force finds himself serving among people whose native language is one of the following. In which of the countries involved in the war would he be? Now, the first language would be Maori, M-A-O-R-I. Mr. Howe.
New Zealand.
New Zealand is correct. Mr. Adams, you were about to say New
New
Zealand.
Zealand.
Very good. Tagalog. Tagalog, Mr. Adams.
The Philippines.
Philippines is right, yes. Any particular island, do you think?
I think Luzon.
Luzon would be absolutely right, Mr. Adams. Though they may speak Tagalog in one of the other thousands of islands that make up the Philippines. And finally, Portuguese. Mr. Adams.
Brazil.
Brazil, yes.
Only Brazil.
The only one. Portugal is not yet involved in the war.
Only Brazil and South America.
Only Brazil and South America. Now, how about this one for Mrs. Henry Alexander of New York City? Name a character or characters of literature who lived in the following places. The first characters lived in a boat on a beach. Lived in a boat on a beach. Mr. Kieran.
Robinson Crusoe and his man Friday.
Well, did they live in a boat or in a tree?
He built himself a cabin out of the remains of the wrecked boat.
Who's quibbling now? I don't know. It seems to me that you wouldn't call it a boat. He certainly did build himself a hut. That's true. But I don't think...
give up.
Maybe I'm too strict on you this evening, Mr. Kieran.
How about Christian in the Tahiti, not Tahiti, you know, the Pitcairn Isle thing?
That's true again, though.
That's true. That's not a character of literature.
With Swiss Family Robinson, did they live in a boat?
No. The only ones I can think of are the Peggotty family. Remember in David Copperfield?
Yes.
Remember that now, Mr. Kieran?
Yes, we did.
The Peggotty family and David Copperfield really lived in a boat. Now, how about characters who lived in a boxcar? Lived in a boxcar. This was toward the end of the story that they lived in a boxcar.
Well, I know a lot of pictures where hobos, like Sullivan's Travels, what's his name? Joel McRae and that cute little girl. What's her name? That
Veronica
cute girl?
Lake.
Veronica Lake.
Oh, Mr. Howe, you do know.
Huh?
Don't know.
Well, it's right. It
All
doesn't-
right. Any other? And this was a picture, too, as a matter of fact, both a novel and a picture.
They lived on a
They lived in a
train?
boxcar toward the end of the...
Blues in the
picture.
Night.
Don't know that
The
one
whole
either.
band lived there.
Is that okay, Mr. Howe?
Might be.
Might be. I was thinking of the Jodes toward the end of The Grapes of Wrath.
They lived more on the truck.
Yes, in most of the story they did, but toward the end they lived in a boxcar on a siding. It wasn't a boxcar that was moving, it was a stationary one.
That's
I'll
pretty-
accept your answer, Mr.
You
Labatt. I'm
accept
sure
two
you're
of my
right.
answers.
All right, I'll accept both of them. Now, name a character who lived inside a fish and set up housekeeping there.
Oh, Jonah.
No, he didn't set up housekeeping. did he?
Pinocchio.
Which one?
Pinocchio.
That wasn't Pinocchio. It was a character from Pinocchio.
Well, he had a leash on the belly of the fish. I know that. What's his name?
What's his name?
Starts with
With a what?
what letter would you
Comes after
suggest?
F. Got it?
Have no idea what's F. A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I, J. I don't know.
I knew I'd stick him.
F, M, N, O?
No, Mr. Kieran?
Wasn't it the goldfish or something?
No.
Starts with a J.
No.
A,
After
B, C,
F, you don't find
G,
J.
G.
G. Oh, that's good,
Wait a
Mr.
minute.
Levant. That's good.
Jetta something.
Geppetto.
Geppetto, yeah.
Geppetto. Think I ought to call that right, folks?
Yeah.
No.
No? Oh, I think that's about right. Yes. How about this one from Monroe B. David of New York? It's a sports question. In what sports did the following excel before reaching Major League Baseball teams? Before they were baseball players, they did something else. Lou Boudreau played at what? Lou Boudreau, Mr. Levant.
I saw him play basketball for the University of Illinois.
Yes. He was
Excellent.
Captain
First
elect at Illinois. Very good. Mr. Howe, were you going to say
He
that?
played in the garden here, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, and I think he still is assistant coach during the winter.
I don't know.
Doubles in basketball. How about Joe Cronin? Played what before he, Mr. Kieran?
He was boy playground tennis champion of San Francisco.
That's perfect, yes. And now he plays what?
He's
does
the
what?
manager of the Boston Red Sox.
Yes, plays shortstop?
No.
At
No?
times
No.
he pinch hits.
Pinch hits.
Shortstop. Well, how about Pee Wee Reese? Pee Wee Reese.
What does he do?
What does he do?
He's shortstop for Brooklyn.
He's shortstop for Brooklyn. What did he do before that?
He's awful young. He couldn't have done much. He's about 10 years old now.
That's right. What could he have done then? You're on the right track, Mr. Levant.
Probably got dressed and went to the ballpark.
It's not a sport.
Well,
That's a career in Brooklyn. He
I
played
think
what?
he played baseball.
No. Now, that's not the point of the question, Mr.
not
Adams.
softball. No.
Well, I had, it's marbles, of course. He's very young. He could only have been a marbles champion. He was marbles champion in Louisville. Well, we got 2 out of 3 on that. How about this one from Marie Searles Patton of Jackson, Mississippi? Whose voice is referred to in these lines that sound somewhat alike? A big, manly voice. That's an actual quote. Big, manly voice.
Quote from what?
Well, if I told it to you, you'd get it, Mr. Adams.
Is that from a Wagnerian soprano?
No, it's from the Jacques' famous soliloquy in As You Like It, when he's talking about the 7 ages of man. Remember that now, Mr. Kieran? Does that come back to you? And his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble. Remember that?
The last.
All right, one wrong. Now, how about a monstrous little voice? A monstrous little voice. Whose voice is referred to in that phrase?
A guest on our show.
Some. Mr. Kieran?
Would that be from Midsummer Night's Dream?
It is indeed. And who?
Bottom.
Bottom.
The weaver who would roar you as gently as any sucking dove.
That's the fellow. He wants to play Thisbe, and he says, I'll speak in a monstrous little voice. That's right. Now, how about a still small voice, Mr. Adams?
That would be Conscience.
Well, yes, it is used about conscience. That's quite the still small voice.
Mine
of
has a
conscience.
loudspeaker.
You mean what it's from? What it's from, you mean?
Yes. It isn't. It's used.
I
in
don't know. It
connection-
ain't me.
Mr. Kieran?
No,
I think it's Mr.
From a music critic of any soprano.
No, it might be, but this is from the Bible, and it refers to the voice of the Lord. And after the fire, a still small voice. It's from Kings 1. But I think that the word, it is used of conscience, Mr. Adams, so I think that's perfectly okay. Now, how about Felix Corman's question of New York City? This is a geographical question. We'll probably argue about this one. Name the 3 routes that the Russians are protecting against German penetration to the Baku oil fields. There are 3 main routes. Now, we can get a couple of these, or one of you can get one the other. Mr. Howe?
One of the routes that the Germans that the Russians are protecting is the Volga Basin route, the Volga River route running from Astrakhan and then down to Baku by sea. They're protecting that at Stalingrad.
Along what sea
Caspian
would that
Sea.
be?
That
Yes.
would be along the Caspian
Along
Sea.
the Caspian Sea coast would be one of them. That leaves us 2 others. That they're
There'd be
protecting.
another route running along the northern foothills of the Caucasus Mountains from the Caspian over to the Black Sea port of Batum.
Across the Caucasus Mountains. That
Well,
one-
along the Caucasus. I don't think it crosses them. I think it goes in the northern foothills of the Caucasus, all on the northern side of the, almost all on the northern side of the mountains.
Yes, and what other would there be then?
There would then be one up along the Black Sea from
along the Black
from
Sea.
Batum to Novorossiysk
Yes.
and to Rostov.
That's right. Either across the foothills of the Caucasus, along the Black Sea, or the Caspian Sea coast.
I didn't get the question. You mind repeating it?
Did you get the answer? That's enough for you.
That's a tough one.
It is a tough one, and Mr. Howe got 100% on it. And now, before we go on to the next question, Mr. Rysdale wants you to see for yourself why tobacco experts make the best cigarette experts.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll take any cigarette you have handy and just split the paper down the middle, you'll quickly see that all you have in your cigarette is tobacco. So when you buy cigarettes, you're really buying tobacco. And it's surely worth your while to profit by the experience of experts who spend their lives buying, selling, and handling the leaf. At markets all over the South, independent buyers, auctioneers, and warehousemen see just who buys what tobacco. Yes, year after year, they see the makers of Lucky's buy the finer, the lighter, the naturally milder Lucky Strike leaf. No wonder that with these independent experts, with men who know tobacco best, it's Lucky's 2-to-1. Smokers, why not choose a cigarette that bears the tobacco expert's stamp of approval? Remember, these experts know that Lucky Strike means fine tobacco. And in a cigarette, as you can see for yourself, it's the tobacco that counts.
Thank you, Mr. Rysdale. It took just 60 seconds. And now a question from Ronald Gebal of Berkeley, California. You know, composers not only borrow themes from each other, that's true, isn't it, Mr. Levant?
As well as money.
Yes, when they're lucky. But often they borrow themes from themselves.
If they're
Now,
good.
the studio pianist will play a theme used by a composer in one of his compositions. And you're to name another composition by the same man in which he uses a similar theme. Just name the composition. We're going to have 2 different ones, and here is the first. Mr. Levant.
Brahms uses that theme in the B-flat concerto, Opus 81, the third movement, the slow movement for cello. The theme is expressed by cello. It's a piano concerto.
Yes, and in this particular, what was being played?
That's a
by Mr.
song.
Levant now?
Immer
You've got it.
Sleeping, slumber, immer. I'm not good at German.
Well, those words are not bad. That immer.
Immer
If
something.
you repeat them often enough,
Slumber.
you can't go wrong. Immer leiser wird mein Schlummer. My slumber is softer and softer, something like that.
As
Yes,
they say in Paris.
more or less. That gives us 100%, Mr. Levant, on that one. You want to hear how the second piano concerto goes, Mr. Levant? Have Mr. Wilde play it for
Well,
us?
I know it. It's up to you if you want to hear it.
I'd love to hear it. Mr. Wilde? Thank you. And as our auditors can tell, that's very similar to the Immer leiser wird mein Schlummer song that was played just a second ago. And now the second of these tests, Mr. Wilde. Mr. Levant?
Schubert.
Schubert is right. Now, in what's being played, and in what other composition?
Well,
is
the
he-
one that it must be is an impromptu by Schubert. This is not the impromptu. There's a couple notes out. You wait. Yeah. This is the song. The other one's the impromptu.
That's very good. Yes,
Yeah.
the other one's the impromptu. That's
The name of the song is Immer's Slumber again.
No. Now you're getting retrogressive. Your answer is quite right. It's the impromptu, or
B flat.
or the. There's another one in which he uses it. The Quartet A minor.
I don't know that.
But the one that was being played was the what? What
The-
was being played?
That's the song, Immer's Slumber,
No.
der Doppelganger. I don't know.
That's Brahms. This is the ballet music from Rosamunde.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Surprising you is a feat in itself, Mr. Levant. Mr. Wilde, will you play that Schubert quartet music?
Schubert Quartet. He had a suit on his head.
Same he must have had. And Mr. Levant's answer, which was the piano impromptu A flat, is equally correct.
Mine's in B flat. I'm sorry.
I have A flat here.
Well, we'll argue.
I'll
The
split the
show's
difference.
over.
We'll make it A minus. All right. That gives us 2 out of 2, Mr. Levant. Thank you very much. And how about this one from Joseph Glazer of New York? What relationship do the following have to important Axis or United Nations supply lines? The Chetniks in Yugoslavia. Mr. Howe.
The Chetniks are able to attack the Danube River route. They're the Yugoslav independent operators, the Yugoslav patriots, and they've been raiding at the Danube supply line, which is one of the chief Axis routes of supply.
To where?
Up through Vienna, up through Central Europe, from down in the oil and grain regions of Romania and Hungary.
Perfectly correct. And thence to the Near East.
Yes.
Now, how about the British in Malta? What,
Rommel's supply line in Africa, not to be confused with Bedgley Rommel.
not in the least to be confused. How about that from the Mediterranean to North Africa?
To North Africa.
And now the Americans in the Solomons are doing what in the way of interfering with, or Mr. Kieran?
Cutting the Japanese line of attack on not only Australia but New Zealand.
Yes. And on the other hand, what are they doing for our own supply line?
They're making an outlying base by which we can recover more of the possessions that have been taken.
Yes,
over
and
by the
protect our
Japanese.
supply lines to Australia and New Zealand. Well, that gives us 3 perfect answers on that one. And I'm afraid that's all we'll have time for. Thank you, Mr. Howe, for being with us this evening. Now, in a few seconds, I'll announce next week's guests. Tonight, Lucky Strike has paid out 3 sets of the Encyclopedia Britannica and 3 $50 war bonds. Remember, listeners, send your letters with questions and the correct answers to Information Please at 480 Lexington Avenue, New York City.
Information, please. Now, listen tomorrow for a comedy show that wasn't ad-lib but was scripted and was a parody called It Pays to Be Ignorant. Join us tomorrow.